Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. We're on location today at the Kane County Sheriff's Office, where Aspire Winning Edge is helping with their first responders. Tell me a little bit about how you met Jessica, Ron.
So during my campaign for sheriff, I launched a video about the importance of being aware of police, first responder mental health, because we saw a significant rise and a consistent rise in police suicides and overall stress, job anxiety. So the whole purpose of the video is to say that there are resources that we can pull in as police administration to support our staff. So she saw this video and said, hey, I know quite a bit about first responder stress and how to reduce it.
So Jess, when you saw that video, you thought, oh my, I can help. Tell me a little bit about how you can help. What do you do?
Sure. So I blend a bunch of unique modalities that oftentimes law enforcement doesn't know about. One is Brainspotting, another is hypnosis, Heartmath, and performance coaching. And those modalities are modalities that we can use to take people where they are, to get them to where they want to go without having the stigma around them feeling as if they have an issue. And that's really important as first responders. And so I reached out to Ron and said, hey, I have something you might be interested in taking a look at.
So Ron, when you heard Brainspotting and all these different modalities, were you like, oh my gosh, I don't know? Or did you think, oh, this is what we need and that she could really help?
Well, of course, I was like, cool, let me try it. So I went through a session myself and I was all in afterwards. So I wasn't concerned at all by any of the taglines or titles, but I know walking out of it, it reduced my anxiety. It gave me one more tool to deal with stress. And I think I went through my first session maybe over a year ago, or about a year ago now. And I still use those tools every day.
Can you give me an example of a problem that you were, or an anxiety that you had that you were trying to work through and you thought, and you used a technique that Jess gave you?
Certainly. I mean, I have to talk more globally on it because throughout a police officer's career, you know, you start out in kind of a stage of euphoria where you finally get hired by a police agency. Perhaps you're fulfilling a life dream. And then 5, 6, 7 years into it, after some violent encounters with the criminal culture, perhaps some personal life impact that resulted from shift work and additional job stress. And you build up all of these blockades in your mind. So I can pick from any one of those circumstances throughout the beginning of my police career that 5 to 10 years to 15 years into my police career really delivered a lot of anxiety to my life professionally and personally. So if I had to pinpoint one thing, I would say having just any violent encounter on the street, and I can point to all of them, they stick in your mind in some position. And when you're moving on to the next confrontation or the next escalated incident that you're responding to, your mind fires back to all of those previous encounters and makes you wonder, what am I going to face this time?
Wow. And Jess, so because you work with athletes and you also work with first responders, and you are all trained for this type of coaching and anxiety to help get that trauma to get handled and erased as we go forward. So talk to me a little bit about how you do that.
Sure. These tools that I'm giving people, it's not just tools, it's education, stuff that we oftentimes don't get as first responders. And it's all about how our autonomic nervous system responds in that fight, flight, and freeze mode for survival. And with law enforcement specifically, we're in that state almost all the time. And it's not survival as we know it as far as fighting for our life. It could be as simple as a call, just a regular routine call, or going to a grocery store. We're hypervigilant all the time. And what happens is we aren't given the education, and so we don't know how to reduce that hypervigilance in our autonomic nervous system. So the tools that I use teach the first responders how to get rid of the cortisol in their body and process it out, and it helps them produce more oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good chemicals that we need to kind of maintain that homeostasis in our autonomic nervous system. And that's truly what we're doing for law enforcement and firefighters and EMS and dispatch, is we're teaching them how to regulate their system through education and various tools.
That's amazing. Now, you have a background in law enforcement. Does that help?
I do. I had to experience all of these various tools as not just an athlete, but as a first responder. And it was then that I went, there's something here. And the reason that there was something there is it was really private. When we process as law enforcement, we have a lot of thoughts. Everybody does. You do, I do, Ron does, the clients I work with do. And they're personal to them, and they don't want to share. And that's what makes what I do so unique, in that they don't need to share their thoughts and their feelings with me. We aren't having a conversation. It's not therapeutic. It's processing. So whatever comes up in their mind is safe for them, and I help guide them as long as they're processing it out and getting rid of that cortisol. And there's ways that we determine that through number systems and through our body. But this particular process is great because it's very private and personal, and it's very safe.
So, Ron, what's been the response of people to Justice program here?
Incredible. So we've had everybody from our non-sworn staff, so those are civilian employees, that certainly have, I'll use the term baggage from personal life and professional life, because they still deal with some of the similar stressors that we do. And then, of course, onto our sworn staff, corrections officers, court security officers, our dispatchers, and our police officers on the street. And we've had some aged veterans come in, people that I never thought would sit down in front of Jessica for even a trial of it, and they walked out and said, not at all what I expected, really cool experience, and I feel much better, and this has given me tools that I can use, again, not just professionally, but personally. And me as a sheriff, as the administrator of the office, that makes me feel fantastic that I can offer this opportunity to the employees. This could be life-changing for somebody. It could be life-saving for somebody.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure it will be. How is this helping you break down the stigma of seeing a health professional?
Certainly there is that stigma that exists amongst first responders and professionals in general. And one thing I introduced to my staff when I first became sheriff is I told them, look, I see a professional, I see a therapist, and we're going to bring in several different components of mental health care. And Jessica was one of those unique components that is not necessarily seeing a psychologist.
Yeah, you know, the psychologists are awesome. We have an on-staff psychologist at the agency I work with, and oftentimes they speed up the work that I do. They're very much needed in a lot of areas of what we do. What varies is I take a client from where they are to get them to where they want to go, and oftentimes that processing happens in the subconscious part of their mind rather than the frontal cortex of their mind, which is talk therapy. Talk therapy is very frontal cortex based, where what I do is all subconscious based. It's all processing, it's all internal, and there's not a lot of dialogue that goes back and forth. It's very difficult to sometimes settle your mind, and our mind is always going. We always have a list of things, and what I'll do with a client is I'll teach them how to truly be in the moment. And so there's an exercise for that. It's a game, but every game has a purpose behind it and an intention. For some people who come and say, hey, I want to shoot better, it's a component of our performance. It's very important for a SWAT team, just for qualifications, whatever it is. And they're so stressed in that the harder they try, the more tense they get. So I have an exercise that I do to teach how to not try. What happens physiologically to your body when you try so hard. And I did it earlier this morning when I had a client here. We did that try exercise, and it's an instant paradigm shift for a lot of people. It shows them what happens to our body under stress.
That's a really great connection between, you started with athletes, sports athletes, but first responders are athletes as well. Absolutely. So you really see the crossover there. Yes. When you go to the sessions. You know, it does clear your mind up to be able to operate through the various duties of your day.
Well, thanks for stopping by, both of you, or letting me stop by and find out what you're doing, Jess. I think the world of you. I think it's so important. And now you're supporting and helping to support our law enforcement. That's a wonderful and winning combination. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more Business Connection.